Most people remember the fish. They remember the catfish coming out of the fryer, the hush puppies disappearing almost as quickly as they were made, and the long tables covered with dishes that seemed to multiply throughout the afternoon. But the food was only part of the reason people came. By the time the first fish was ready, relatives had already been catching up for hours. Children were running between the tables. For Black families across the South, the fish fry occupied a place somewhere between a meal and a community tradition. It brought together people who worked long hours, lived miles apart, or rarely had an opportunity to see one another outside of church and family occasions. Churches organized them to raise money. Families organized them simply because everyone enjoyed being together. What many people remembered years later was not necessarily what was on their plate, it was who happened to be sitting beside them when they ate it. Fried catfish. The smell usually arrived before the fish did. Hot oil, seasoned cornmeal, and the unmistakable scent of catfish frying somewhere nearby. During slavery, enslaved people were often permitted to fish in rivers and streams, one of the few ways they could supplement the limited rations they received. Catfish was plentiful throughout the Mississippi Delta, the Carolinas, and much of the Gulf South. After emancipation, that relationship with the water remained an important source of food and independence for many families. The cornmeal coating was never simply about flavor. It made the fish more filling and helped stretch a catch across more plates. As quickly as fish emerged from the fryer, it disappeared onto paper plates and into waiting hands. Children hovered nearby, hoping to grab a piece before it reached the serving table. Many adults remember doing exactly the same thing when they were young. Hush puppies. One popular explanation for the name claims that hunters or fishermen tossed fried cornmeal dough to barking dogs to quiet them down. Whether that's true or not, hush puppies had become a familiar part of Southern fish fries long before most people could remember. Cornmeal, flour, onion, egg, and buttermilk mixed into a batter and dropped into hot oil by the spoonful. Inexpensive, filling, and almost impossible to stop eating. Throughout much of Southern history, feeding a large gathering required dishes that could stretch ingredients without making anyone feel shortchanged. A small amount of cornmeal could help feed a crowd. Coleslaw. Large bowls appeared on folding tables, filled with shredded cabbage and dressing prepared earlier that morning. Vinegar-based in the Carolinas, mayonnaise-based further west and deeper south. Arguments about which was better could continue for years. Cabbage stored well, remained affordable, and could feed a large number of people without much preparation. The recipes were rarely written down. People learned by watching, a daughter helping her mother, a grandson standing nearby while his grandmother worked. The knowledge moved from one generation to the next so naturally that many people never noticed it happening. Fried mullet. Along the Gulf Coast and in coastal communities throughout Florida and the Carolinas, mullet often found its way into the fryer. Abundant, flavorful, and easy to catch during seasonal runs, it was working-class food, the fish that fed the people who actually lived there, rather than the ones passing through. The work often began long before the gathering itself. People were out before sunrise casting nets, hauling in catches and cleaning fish. People tend to remember the laughter and the plates piled high with food. They don't always remember the hours of labor that made those moments possible, but somebody always did. Fish roe patties. Fish roe, the egg sacs of catfish, mullet, and other fish, often became a dish of its own. Mixed with cornmeal and seasoning, shaped into patties, and fried until brown. For families that had spent generations making full use of available resources, this wasn't unusual. It was simply common sense. The fish fry was a celebration, but traces of older experiences were always present in the food, dishes that carried memories of harder years and of communities relying on one another when there were few alternatives. Baked beans. Large pans of baked beans appeared alongside the fish, filling the air with the smell of brown sugar, molasses, and smoke. Beans were affordable, filling, and capable of feeding a crowd without straining a family's budget. After enough years, nobody stopped to ask why they belonged there. Their place at the table simply felt natural. Potato salad. Every fish fry had at least one person known for making potato salad. sometimes two or three, and every one of them believed their recipe was the best in the family, whether mustard belonged in it, whether sweet pickles improved it or ruined it. The conversation itself became part of the tradition. Potato salad traveled with black families during the Great Migration, moving north alongside people who left the South in search of work and opportunity. Family recipes rarely survive because somebody wrote them down. They survive because younger relatives spend years watching someone make them, often without realizing they're learning anything at all. Fried buffalo fish. In parts of the Mississippi Delta and along several major river systems, buffalo fish appeared alongside catfish. Unlike catfish, they demanded patience. More bones meant children learned early to slow down and pay attention while eating. Many younger people today have never eaten fish that requires that level of care. The meal lasted longer because of it. The conversations usually did too. Chitterlings. Chitterlings, the cleaned and slow-cooked small intestines of hogs, have a history deeply connected to the realities of slavery. Enslaved people were often given cuts that slaveholders considered undesirable. Over time, necessity evolved into tradition. By the 20th century, chitterlings had become a cultural touchstone throughout the South and in the cities where Southern families later settled. Cleaning them could take hours. Few dishes divided opinion quite like chitterlings. Yet the dish continued appearing year after year because preparing it connected people to parents and grandparents who had spent decades doing the same work in the same kitchens. Pickled pig feet. Near the edge of the serving tables, there was sometimes a large glass jar filled with vinegar, peppers, and pickled pig feet. Pickling had long been one of the most important methods of food preservation before reliable refrigeration became common. What began as practical necessity gradually became part of the food culture itself, habits that families continued passing from one generation to the next. Carp. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, carp was widely promoted as an affordable food fish and became part of the diet in many river communities across the South and Midwest. Black fishermen learned how to prepare it well, and that knowledge passed through families for generations. Preparing it properly required patience, skills learned not from cookbooks, but by spending time with relatives who had been cleaning and cooking fish for years. Prepared well, it earned its place at the table. Prepared poorly, everyone noticed. Smothered turtle. In some communities across the rural Deep South, turtle appeared at family gatherings alongside more familiar dishes. The meat was slow cooked until tender in a rich gravy, seasoned with onions and peppers. Children learned to prepare it the same way they learned most practical skills, by spending time around people who already knew what they were doing. Many of those traditions have grown less common, not because anyone deliberately abandoned them, but because fewer opportunities remain for younger people to encounter them in everyday life. Watermelon. As the afternoon gave way to evening, watermelon made its appearance. Large slices passed from hand to hand. Children reached for the biggest pieces. Enslaved people grew watermelons in gardens generations ago, and after emancipation, the fruit remained a familiar part of summer throughout Black communities. Within the communities themselves, however, watermelon never stopped being associated with summer gatherings and long afternoons spent with people whose company you enjoyed. After hours of fried food in southern heat, it felt exactly right. Relatives lingered long after finishing their plates. Conversations drifted from recent news to family stories everyone already knew by heart. Nobody seemed eager to leave. Many of these dishes are becoming harder to find, not because they vanished suddenly, but because the circumstances that sustain them have changed. Families live farther apart. Older relatives pass away. Skills once learned naturally at church events and family reunions have fewer opportunities to be passed along.